Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Thoughtful Bro. So psyched to be here for a especially creeptastic, spooktastic, really pushing the boundary, almost transgressive episode of The Thoughtful Bro this week with high-flying debut author, sort of author like no other debut author that I've come across in some time, CJ Leede. We will get to her and her amazing book in a moment. But first, just a reminder that The Thoughtful Bro is here every Tuesday at 2 for what makes great books tick, what makes great authors tick. And we are airing, of course, on A Mighty Blaze. And if you don't know, you should know that A Mighty Blaze is an all-volunteer initiative that started right at the beginning of COVID to match up readers and writers virtually and make sure everybody in the world who couldn't leave their house was hearing about all the best books that were getting released. At A Mighty Blaze, we are never, ever asking for your money. And if you want to show us the love, what you can do is like, subscribe, follow, retweet, repost, tell your friends about it. All the things on all the platforms. That's how we feel it from you guys. But if you do want to spend money, I have an idea. You could spend it on provocative and perverse debuts, haunting and horrifying debuts that are infatuated with the shine and grind of LA and all its pina colada, plastic neon glory. Spend your hard-earned dollars on books that have the edge of the big sleep and the ponderings of Dostoevsky. Debuts that will make you never look at a curling iron, a spoon, or an eyeball the same way again. Debuts like MAEVE by CJ Leede. Now look what I've done today. You see the style going on here? I don't, this is like a reverse thing, but I hope you see two eyeballs on your screen now. One on my hat, one on this book. So, see, I tapped the wrong side of my head. Eyeball for eyeball. This book is so great, and I'm so happy to have you here, CJ Leede, on your actual pub day. Thank you for being on The Thoughtful Bro.
Thank you for having me. And I love the eyeball. I actually didn't notice until now. So we're ready. We're getting it.
I'm so ready. All right, just a little bit of more intro about CJ Leede. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Columbia University. She has a BA from NYU's Gallatin School, where she studied mythology and the Middle Ages. And in her novels, she loves writing about deeply flawed loners and misanthropes, recluses and outsiders, those who are called to live beyond the confines of a traditional life. She loves her some freaks, monsters, and adventurers. She is also a helpless sucker for a number of other things like cute dogs, storms, cocktails, dive bars, and Star Trek. Her debut novel, as I said, is the first of three that's coming from Tor Nightfire, and Publishers Weekly had this to say about the book. Leede does an excellent job of anchoring the story's more chaotic excesses in MAEVE's narration, which offers equal parts trenchant insight and pitch black humor. The result is a gore-soaked love letter to Los Angeles that fans of American Psycho won't want to miss. I thought they captured it pretty well.
Thank you. I'll take it. I was very pleased with that. And that whole thing felt like a really good dating profile for me. So thank you. like book dating.
I love that. You know, it's funny. There's somebody in the Boston writer community here, a friend of mine named Allison, who was like, she's like out in the dating scene, and she was like, what I want is some kind of merging of like Goodreads, like TBR lists and the dating profile. So it's like when you have TBR lists that match up with somebody else, then it like sort of merges into you go on a date with them kind of thing.
It's genius.
Right?
Genius. I actually found my boyfriend in a writing program, so it's basically the same thing. But if people can get it through an app, that would be like, somebody take that idea. Somebody roll with it.
Somebody take that idea. I will only charge a small fee for that idea. Actually, it's Allison's idea. So, all right. So, folks, before we get started with the interview proper, I just want to give a few trigger warnings, because if you don't like kinky things or you don't like things that may involve a little bit of the old-fashioned torture, this might not be quite the conversation for you. But if you are ready for that kind of thing, and I hope you are, then this is going to be a lot of fun. And I guess, honestly, CJ, before we even get into what your book is about, I'm just sort of have to ask you this question. Why is a book that is about such things that your book is about so much fun? Like, what is that?
Well, yeah. I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, I think like what is more fun than absurdity and like I'm a total maximalist. Like I think why are Tarantino movies fun? You know, there's blood everywhere, but like we're in it, and we're in it, you know? It's all part of it.
I love that word maximalist. I just love maximalism generally. It's like I want to live my life in a maximalist. Like I wanted to say on my grave, here lies a maximalist, you know? So I do think that fits your book so well. But before I go on any more about your book, why don't you just in your own words tell the world what Mayfly is about?
So the quick pitch is that Maeve lives in LA. She is a theme park princess by day, a very specific Ice Queen princess, and by night she is a serial killer. So it's a sort of retelling, sort of like Dance with American Psycho, and a few others.
I got so many vibes from this book. I mean, I got, definitely you get the American Psycho vibe, but there's so much in there. I mean, I got Philip Marlowe, Big Sleep vibe, LA kind of philosophical detective-ish. I got Lana Del Rey. I got David Lynch. I got some Sartre and Camus in there. There's also Carolyn Kepnes, a fellow LA writer who writes the big series You. How do you see your influences?
Well, I mean, definitely the big one for me was Story of the Eye. I really was very like, I was in a weird moment, and I get kind of fixated sometimes, and I got really fixated on the idea that one, nobody was talking about this book anymore. I mean, I did a whole MFA in New York, and like one other writer gave me this book, but nobody talks about it. And
just tell the audience about like what is Story of the Eye for those who know.
It's like a 90-page like piss and blood soaked, debaucherous, pornographic, really wild, surrealist novella following these teenagers basically doing awful things, and it culminates in this like threesome with a Spanish priest, and there are eyeballs, and it's a murder too. I mean, the whole thing's gnarly, but it's awesome. And I was really kind of like fixated on this idea that like I wasn't seeing anything like that. And I also was curious as to why people had stopped talking about it. And this idea that a lot of like, male written literature has been kind of like shelved to make room for new people, which is great. But, instead of shelving it, can we celebrate it and actually just kind of bring it into the now? And so I wanted to see what it looked like for, to have a book like that, but with a female protagonist. And so here we are.
So look, I was really sold on the voice of the book. And as we were talking about in the green room, so folks may not know this, but Chad Louisville of Janklow Nesbitt is my agent and also CJ's agent. And so I was texting with Chad sort of maniacally over the weekend. I was like, as I was like reading this book, I was like, is she going to pull it off? I think she's going to pull it off. Like, oh my God, she's doing it. I texted him, I'm like, I think I hold a future cult classic in my hands. I just thought the voice was so strong, and some sort of from a craft perspective, there's this thing you always hear called the contract with the reader, right? Like in the first few pages of the book, there is a contract, a kind of content contract, a tonal contract. Like this is the kind of ride you're about to go on, just so you know. And I mean, I think like the issue with certain books is some don't really have a clear contract. Some set up a certain contract, then it's a different kind of book, or they can't pull off the thing that they seem to be up to. And I very much felt like you pulled off the exact thing that you were up to. And I just thought those first couple pages were absolutely lights out. And I was hoping you could do us all a solid and just maybe read the first page of the book.
Thank you. Okay. Luckily, I have it right here. Thank you for your very kind words. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Can I just go?
I'm waiting all weekend, baby.
Every man shares the same fantasy, and it is this: he will marry a universally beloved sweetheart. live a noble life, and succeed in all the ways his father taught were best. And when he stands at the pinnacle of filial and paternal achievement, when he has finally reached that great height of goodness, honor, and inarguable virility, then and only then his wife, child, and pet should be ripped from him, violently, unforgivably, restoring, ultimately, freedom. Because he has done the good thing, the right thing, and only then become the victim of its vanishing, this virtuous man may now turn with the full support of any onlooker to violence, rage, nihilism, and debauchery, which were his ultimate true aims all along, to lose himself in the glorious sanctioned rapture of retribution. How many husbands of wives have lined up at the box office to live out this exact fantasy that they deeply, fundamentally, and brutally desire? Men are insipid, stupid creatures. Here is the truth, the one that so few of us know. You do not need a moral and noble story to do what you want. You do not first need to be a victim to become a monster. Your loved ones need not be taken from you so that you might drink and brutalize and chase the sublime. Life is fleeting and meaningless and crying to be seized from behind and fucked into obscurity. This is my story, and you cannot control it, no more than you can the ever lower dangle of your sex or the warming of this fat, lazy prison rock floating in the semen-splotched dark. My name is Mayfly. I work at the happiest place in the world.
Let's go. Let's go. It's so good. It has everything, and it's just like, and it just goes on like that, folks. I mean, it's sort of a brief, it's a slim gem of a book. You know, it's a small read. What I mean that, you know, it's like 280 pages or something, right? And it's just like that voice is just sustained throughout, and I just love it. And everybody who writes about this in a Goodreads review or a review of your book is just talking about that voice and how dark and funny and philosophical it is. And I guess it's just got this thing that I love, which is what I would call the philosophical femme fatale, right? It's like this woman who is absolutely a femme fatale, and there's lots of like epic, you know, erotic, unforgettable scenes. And there's also lots of scenes of absolute body horror and gore. But throughout, there are these like little gems of observations and kind of like dark philosophy that I just love. And I guess to put that into a question is, when you found that voice, I don't know if you wrote that passage first or last or whatever, but like regardless, like there's such a sustained voice throughout. Was that a breakthrough for you, or had you been like honing this voice for years?
I think, well, first of all, that was pretty much what I wrote day one of this book. And it really didn't change much. So that's pretty much what came out of me first. And then I kind of fleshed out the idea from there. In terms of the voice, I mean, I think Maeve is the character that, I mean, everything else, I've written 2 other books, okay, that didn't get published, or at least not yet. And this is the one that I just didn't even have to try. And for whatever reason, like, this is all the things in my skull that I haven't put on the page otherwise, and they just flow out of me. And yeah, for better or worse.
And can I ask, CJ, like, can you tell me about like that artistic moment in your life when, you know, so you'd written 2 books that hadn't gotten published and may get published now, but whatever, like they were your drawer novels at that point. And talk about that transition, because I think people who are artists and writers who watch the show are kind of interested in this kind of craft question. Just like, how did that feel? Was there's a story that people sometimes tell. There's sort of this paradigm that you see sometimes with a breakout novel, which is like, it's just the I don't give a fuck novel. Like, I've been trying to write a certain way, and then finally I was just like, I don't fucking care anymore. I'm sick of pretending. Blah, you know. And was it sort of like that, or how would you put it?
Yeah, 100%. I actually, yes, it was not only that I mean, I was getting, so we share our agent, right? But I was sending to agents with those other books. I think I got like over 70 rejections on one book. And like, it was so constant. And Chad was the only yes ever, by the way, and best yes. Hi, Chad, you're the best. But it's pretty wild. Like, it really was such a, you know, every single day waking up to these emails. And then at the same time, I'd lost a number of family members, and Oh, thank you. And the election was coming up, and it was a pandemic, and there was just like all this shit piling up. And I just thought, like, what am I doing? I just had this question in my head about Story of the Eye, and I just went balls to the wall. And yeah, but it really, there's a lot to be said for the Fuck It novel.
Oh yeah. And I would let me ask you this. The story is so striking, and like the events of the story are so disturbing, a lot of them. I noticed in the acknowledgments you said something along the lines of like, thanks mom and dad for all the support, but I don't know quite what you're going to think about this, or something like that. But like, I guess I'm just wondering, like, beyond your parents, like even those in your writing circle, when you showed them this, like what was the kind of reaction to people who'd maybe read some of your writing before?
Well, mostly I think I was getting really positive feedback that maybe my writing had jumped farther ahead than it had been in the past. And I really think there's a lot to be said for just, I think this was a voice and a character that scared me a little bit, and but you just have to lean into the one you have.
Yeah. So the name Mayfly, so that is like actually her first and last name. And
Yeah.
so I was like wondering, so there's like a lot there, and I love unpacking people's names. So first of all, it sounds like Mayfly every time I say it. So there's that.
Yes.
And then I know you studied mythology, and I was like, Maeve, it's such an unusual name. So I looked it up and like, hold on, I have it in my notes here. What does Maeve mean? Oh, intoxicating or she who rules. And it's like a name of Irish origin. Anyway, I just wanted to ask you, like, what's the significance of Maeve Fly?
Well, first of all, I've always liked the name Maeve because of the Irish goddess. I mean, she's just badass.
Yeah.
I also think it's a beautiful name, but honestly, it was so simple. I originally called this book, because of Story of the Eye, Story of Maeve Fly. And everybody swiftly said no to that, but the name stuck. And Fly in particular, I mean, I just felt like, she's a barfly. She's the fly in the room watching everyone. She's sort of existing whether we want her to or not, and we can't do too much about it.
And just to go really deep, because I love this kind of stuff, but it's like, so first of all, it's like Maeve Fly. It could almost be read as a command, right? Like she's flying, right? And
Oh,
then
totally.
and the fact that she flies, I mean, this it is a story about empowerment. I mean, she's sort of like not quite who she really is, and then she sort of becomes this thing, and like the Maeve Fly sort of has that in it too, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is the most annoying thing to say, but it was one of these moments where it was like the top of my skull opened up, and it was just there. It was so weird. I wrote the book really fast. All the pieces clicked into place. It was just like one of those crazy things.
Yeah.
That hopefully I can replicate. We'll see. Or follow up.
So yeah, I mean, I think what's behind this, and I'm not, this was clear to me reading the book, but it was also clear I've heard you in some podcasts talk about this. Just the idea of like a certain kind of female villain, and why isn't there this kind of female villain? And I mean, I think it's right there in those opening pages when you say, "Here's the truth. You do not first need to be a victim to become a monster." And I've just heard you talk about that like, when women do something bad, like say even the film Monster, right, where it's like, like this bad thing happened to Charlize Theron's character, and then she became this serial killer, but she had like a really good reason to become a serial killer,
Yeah.
right? And whereas you're like, men just sort of just do it, and I think there was just something there that you wanted to explore. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. And of course, like there are exceptions, right? Like I was thinking about this recently, like Annie Wilkes and Misery, like she didn't have like some traumatic backstory as far as I remember, and like Shirley Jackson has some good ones. But yeah, in general, I was just seeing this trend everywhere of like, and look, I love a trauma narrative, and sure, we all have them. But I think I just I just wanted to feel in fiction the freedom that I was seeing male characters get to, feel. Like, look at Patrick Bateman. Like, he's fine. His life is fine. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, he wasn't like abused. Like, it just, he is who he is. And I can't get my head around the idea that we can't accept a woman being the same way. Like, all these Disney villain movies coming out, like about Maleficent, she had her wings cut off and that's why she's bad. And the other one, but we're not seeing that for the male villains. So
Mhm.
it's like, it's
Mhm.
almost another way to undercut women's powers. Like, we can't be monstrous too.
Mm.
Or maybe the scariest things, like, for us, is to accept the idea that women could be. And maybe we just like can't go there. But I don't know. It's really freaking fun to just not be a victim for 288 pages. And then she becomes a victim of herself,
Yeah.
and she gets to have that freedom, even if that's not something that people get to experience necessarily in real life.
So I'm a big fan of Robert McKee, the famous story guru, screenwriter guru guy. I've been to like a lot of his seminars, and I like thinking about story theory a lot. And one of the things that he talks about that's like a pet peeve of his is this idea that like and this is just he thinks it's like sort of a trend in screenwriting and storytelling now. That like every character flaw must have a hidden trauma explanation, right?
Mm,
And it's just, I mean, he just rails against that, and
yeah.
he mocks it, and he's just like, here comes that moment in the movie where you get the flashback when like daddy hit him when he was young, or mommy had an affair, and it's like that's why he does this when he's 45 years old. And yeah, I mean, I also agree that like, look, there's some things just in my own life, and I think I can say this fairly about human nature, but it's like there's some things in my own life that are because of something that happened when I
Of
was young.
course.
But
Of
there's like many qualities that I have that are just, you're just born that way.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I also, I kind of think in fiction, it just doesn't matter that much. Like,
Mm,
it doesn't, I didn't, and this was actually a big conversation in edits of the book too, is like, I was pretty adamant, like, her backstory doesn't matter. Like, she is who she is now. These are her actions, and the story takes place in the present. Like, we don't need to take her to therapy,
right.
like, it's okay to just have her exist. And because it's fiction.
Yeah.
So it was really fun.
Right. Yeah, and I just think that I think there's a kind of sentimentality that is buried in the trauma. Everything that's bad must have an explanation, because it's sort of
Yes.
like there's an aspect of that which is like one can't quite cope with the fact that some things are just bad and some people
Mm,
are just bad, you know?
yeah, I could totally see that. And I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, how it moves forward with these trends. And again, like, I love a good, trauma narrative too. Like, those are great. It's just I knew that I wasn't going to be the person to write one.
Right. And let me ask you this: the female readers that have given you feedback, fans of yours that have already read the book or starting to read the
Mhm.
book now, I'm sure you've had a fair amount of, feedback from female readers. Like, I'm just curious what that feedback has been like along these lines.
Well, Maeve's a polarizing character. I think, like, people, it's been cool because I think people love her or hate her. And I think Maeve's a character who loves to love and loves to hate. So, like, there's a lot of fun in that as
Right.
well. But yeah, I think early on we had some people calling it anti-feminist, which I was pretty surprised by. I thought I wrote a feminist book in my way.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the lack of, some people jump in and say, well, this isn't how it is. Women are victims of society, and which is obviously true and has been true. And Patrick Bateman, he is actually just a symbol of capitalism. But it's like, I don't think Brett was sitting there thinking about that when he was writing that book. I think he wrote a really great serial killer narrative,
Yeah.
you know?
Now, it just explain to me, like, and I just apologize for not
Yeah.
maybe understanding feminism the way I should, but just like, in what way is your book not a feminist book?
I guess maybe it was. I think there was maybe some feedback that she fits into a male ideal, or that,
I
you
see.
know, by not embracing the sort of like the fact that women have been so victimized, you know, that you're sort of ignoring it or trying to say it doesn't matter, which definitely was not what I was trying to do. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's been wild. People have reactions and people tag me in them. It's just like, thanks. That's a
Yeah.
fun one every day.
Oh my God. All right. Well, getting into like a different reason that you wrote the book, maybe I'm speculating here, but like I heard you say in a different interview that you as a person are afraid of lots of things.
Yes.
Yes. And so I'm just wondering, I'm not that way and I don't write horror. I've always wondered, like, I always think that like basically each genre has a certain set of emotions that are sort of, anybody who reads horror is expecting to feel certain things, and anybody who reads a legal drama is expecting certain things, or a
Right.
family drama or whatever, a romance. And they like that sort of category of grouping of feelings. Anyway, clearly like fear and horror and terror and all these things are in the horror genre. And so obviously you're the kind of person who feels those things, you like exploring them. I guess my question to you is part of the reason why you would write a book like this, does writing horror like help you get sort of take the bull by the horns in a way and like get a hold of your fears, or
It helps me make them useful.
Mm,
I think it's a weird thing. Like I'm definitely somebody who like I like adrenaline.
yeah.
So I'm definitely like in life, I go do things. But in terms of like books and movies and media, yeah, and even just like I've had nightmares my whole life. I grew up religious, and the religion like really scared the shit out of me, and
Mm,
really like really terrified me. And so like I think all of that has just always been in me, but horror writing is amazing because it's like if you are afraid of things, if you have nightmares, if you're sort of like if your particular brain just kind of functions to say what's the worst thing that could happen in this moment. I mean, that's exactly what writing horror is. So it's really freaking cool. And then I get to make use of it. Now I'm just very grateful.
yeah. And I would just say you clearly have a gift. Like some of the things that you thought of, I just I was like, wow. I mean, it was not only horrifying, but just like so deliciously, inventively horrifying. And I mean, I don't want to like spoil it for anybody, but I mean, like, look at this cover. Look at this amazing cover, and like how just
They killed it.
creative. Yeah, it's amazing, right? It's sort of like it's got a bit of like a B movie feel to it. It's just sort of like it's like so in your face horrific, but then it's also just like so wildly imaginative. And then if you sort of like couple like the aesthetics of this cover with like the Dostoevsky epigram at the front of the book, it's just such that perfect blend of like horror, philosophy, tantalizing. I don't know. I just like
I'm
the
so glad.
yeah. Tell me about this cover though.
That cover is well, so two people were really instrumental in this. One is Christine at Nightfire, is the cover designer. So
Mhm.
but she was in contact with this woman, Carly Janine Mazur, who is a painter. And it's actually a painting that exists.
Mm.
And somewhere, I guess she still has it. And then Christine took it and kind of like turned it into a book. When we first saw the painting, I was like, one, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And two, that's going to be like a book cover. Like how, it's just like, I couldn't even, but they just killed it. And
They killed it.
I really wanted like a vintage. I love, like peak era. I mean, he's still in his peak, but like old Stephen King and Anne Rice, and like I wanted a font that really felt like that kind of
Yeah.
that 90s novel and before, and so that I think we kind of got it.
Is this the fabled vagina dentata? Is that what that is?
Actually, no, that works. These were wolf teeth.
Oh my God.
These were all, yeah. So the like wolf gums, and actually, so the artist, she pitched us 4 different like kind of sketches of directions we could go, and we all went for this one. And then we got to pick, was it going to be like red or black here? Was the eye blue or green? I mean, it was so much fun. And then I think Christine did all this with the cream color and everything. It's freaking awesome. Look at that drip.
Bro, you could sell merch like with, on a t-shirt, this thing,
Yeah.
I think you have some merch, right? Or you?
I have CJ Leede merch, but I don't have MAEVE merch yet, but I think it'll be incoming.
Good. Well, let me know. Put me on that list. All right. So we have a couple questions from the audience. We've got about 10 minutes left here, and we'll get to those in a minute. But, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about in this, which is not horror related, well, it sort of is, we'll get to that in a second, is that the kind of the fakery and the superficiality of LA and the way that Maeve loves it. She loves it. And there's actually, if you don't mind, I want to read just a quick passage.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So this is from page 15. And I think it's like sort of like tonally, atmospherically, psychologically so interesting with sort of what you're up to here. So I drew my eyes away from hers and scanned the room once more. I saw humans trying so hard to make meaning, to create a space for meaning, an experience, something to be desired. I saw walking corpses draped in finery meant to look not so fine, expensive but casual. I am not trying, they said. This is effortless. But the trying, the striving, it poisoned the air. It perfumed it. It was everywhere. It was intoxicating. Everywhere, all the time, people pretending. But here in Hollywood, it's so much more than that, so much more that it renders it authentic. I wanted to drink it down and gulp it up and fill myself with it. And so the reason why I love that so much is like she has this relationship with all that is like plastic and fake. And just as you say in that passage, like there's so much of that plasticity, it like becomes authentic, right? And I guess part of my read on the book is that although she loves it, and what I love is like there's a couple, like her favorite drink is a pina colada, because it's just like so fake. It's just like sugar, and it's like not the thing that it says it is, and it's just sugar water. And then there's another great line that I just loved. It's sort of a throwaway line where she's like sees this Johnny Depp looking character in a bar, and she's like, is that Johnny Depp, or is that a Johnny Depp impersonator? It really doesn't matter which one is the truth, and that's sort of it right there. I thought it was just like so interesting, this take on superficiality and artificiality. And I guess the final thing to kind of like close my TED talk about your book is that like, I just thought like maybe this like wild sex she has in all these crazy places, and this way that she is an absolutely gruesome killer, is a sort of way to rebel against that. And it's like sort of like these are the only real thing, and she's like sort of craving something real, and maybe like the screams of her victims and torture and sex are like really the only way to get to that. Anyway, I will stop there and let you respond to any of that.
I love all that. Thank you. I think part of it was really just I had moved here, and I was trying to kind of like reckon with LA and trying to get to know LA, and COVID happened. So it was like I had just moved here, and then suddenly I couldn't really explore. But part of it too was that I didn't really realize this until right now. This is probably what was going on. I had somebody in my life who I was very close with, and then we kind of parted ways while I was writing this book. But that person was really anti a lot of what is here in the city. And at the same time that I was kind of like, shit, I made a mistake moving here. Like, and where am I? I was also kind of like, my hackles went up, and I just wanted to defend this place. And in that sort of weird like intersection, I kind of I really found that I love this totally bizarre, totally kitsch, totally fake, but so real experience that is the collective shared fantasy of LA. It's a whole city built like a theme park, and there's so much to be said for adults whoever, coming together, or even just going to a tiki bar, right? And like getting a pina colada is like, you are stepping away from your life. You're stepping into this fantasy, but at the same time, like, that's real too. That's living. And I think there's a lot to be said for just like clinging to the things that bring you joy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but all of it, but I love your take. And I mean, I think for sure this is just she's a character who can't manage any of her feelings or wants or desires or fears. And so just sort of goes.
Yeah. I love that. And then, not just to make sure that people don't get the wrong idea about your book. It is a love story. It is
Totally.
it is a like sweet love story that has all these. It has a meet cute that's not like any meet cute you've ever read, and there's all these ups and downs, and they want to understand each other, and there's a real question of like, is that love real, and do they understand each other? It's sort of like really the question the book hangs on. And I just want to say, like, sort of surprising me most of all, I was like sort of choked up at the end of the book. Like in this of all books, I got choked up at the end. But I just want to make sure people knew like that the love story was real.
Somebody early on said, I think this is a rom-com dressed up as horror. And I was like, yeah, I guess it probably is.
Yep. I love that part of the story. And I was like totally surprised by it. I mean, I was sort of, there's so much else going on. I almost sort of didn't see what you were up to. And then it was like one of those moments that I love as somebody who loves to think about how stories are put together. I love that at the end of the book, I was like, oh, this was a love story all along, wasn't it?
I'm so glad. And I have to, apparently hockey romance is really in right now. There's a hockey aspect for anyone who hasn't read it. So, just on trend over here.
Totally on trend. Yes. And it's hot. The hockey aspect of this book is hot. So, all right. I just want to talk like sort of like the last set of questions for me is just, just about your journey. I mean, as a debut author, I know like just from reading your social feeds and stuff, like just kind of how much this meant to you and everything. But I'm wondering, here your publication day, I feel like in a way it's like talking to somebody on their wedding day, right? If their publication day for their debut novel, is there something that sort of stands out to you or that was just a particularly meaningful moment on that journey?
I mean, there are so many. I did get to go to 2 stores yesterday and sign books, and that was really the coolest thing ever. Because I mean, if you're a reader, if you're a writer, it's like that's the dream, is just to be able to walk into bookstores and see it there and get to interact with the booksellers, and that was really special. But I mean, everybody's been so cool. We had a 2-year ramp up on this book from when it sold to pub day. So it's been like, I think it's been 2 years. So it's been a long time coming, and I'm so just like grateful and happy and stoked she's out in the world now.
Curious again, like from a craft and publishing perspective, what would you say was the main thing that changed from when you sold the book to now in those 2 years? Was there something big about the book, or was it basically the same book that you sold?
Oh, this is pretty much, my editor said, well, one, we had to take out a prominent theme park corporation and their IP. So
Okay.
I did originally have it written explicitly naming a place and a character and a lot of other characters. So that was the big thing. Lots of lawyers weighed in on that.
Oh my God.
Many lawyers from different teams and companies. And then she wanted me to add 50 pages of more relationship with Gideon and Kate and Tallulah. And that was it, really. I mean, we just kind of added. So.
Well, speaking of that very famous Ice Queen and the unnamed theme park, you mentioned Tarantino earlier in the interview, and I think one of the most iconic scenes in the 90s was the scene in Reservoir Dogs when somebody tied to a chair gets their ear cut off to Stuck in the Middle with You. And I thought there was like a scene in this book that gave that scene a run for its money, with a famous song, Let It Go, Let It Go.
Well, that scene did have the entire song's lyrics interspersed originally, and was I'm gonna say I think it was pretty cool. But actually, yeah, Chad was like, no, no, I think we can do like one line.
Oh, I got the picture though. I mean, I don't need any help remembering.
I'm glad you heard it.
Yes, I think every American, certainly any American with kids, knows the words to that song inevitably. And so it was nice to kind of see different images in my mind than the images I'm used to. So thank you. All right, so we're going to go into a few audience questions if we have them that we could put up. That would be great. Speaking, by the way, of booksellers, we just had Mary Weber O'Malley on of Skylark Books.
Oh, cool.
Mary Weber O'Malley is amazing. She's a book influencer, kind of out in Chicago, and she was really hyping this book to me.
Oh man.
Yeah, so she was on the Mayfly train early. All right, but let's go. So thanks, Mary, for joining. Let's go back to the questions. Okay, what would you say to debut novelists to keep them going?
I would say there are times when it just sucks and it's hard, and everybody's going to weigh in and, try to help. But the only person who can get you there is you. And just remember why you love doing what you're doing. And the writing at the end of the day is really all that matters.
Great. Let's do maybe one more. All right. Can you describe the tone of your drawer novels, and would you ever return to that voice?
Yeah. So actually, I believe my next book out is going to be the very first one I ever wrote, but like a totally different version of it. Which is basically dealing with a lot of the same themes as Mayfly, but a very different character, sheltered, younger, more morally driven, but lots of blood and sex and things. And then and romance. I actually think I'm always going to have romance in there. And then the other one is a big, huge, fat vampire trucker story. And I hope that I get to return to it one day. The voice is very different. I feel that one's very close to my heart. So I hope it gets out there one day.
I mean, Vampire Trucker is pretty great high concept stuff. I mean, you just hear those two words and like the book just sort of materializes.
You know what? Too, most of it takes place in Massachusetts, in Western Mass. So your neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, use me as a source. I can like fill you in. All right. Wait, I think we have one more cue that we're going to pop up here. Okay. We hear you have dogs, and we want to know about the role your dogs play in your work. Seriously, in your writing life.
In my writing life, well, I mean, they definitely sit on my lap all day while I write. I haven't written my dogs into any books yet, but I'm a big rescue dog advocate and like fostering and all that, so I'm sure that's going to come in. There's a prominent dog featured in, I believe, my next book coming out. And they also help me sort of like find my gentleness and humanity, I would say, at the end of every writing day. So that's a good thing to like be able to tap back into after living in these worlds.
And don't your dogs have their own Instagram feed? Is that true? Or
they do have their own Instagram. It's not like big. We don't like manage it the right way to make it big, but they're very cute, and they're all like one has 2 legs, one has 1 eye. They're the best dogs on the planet.
Oh wow! Oh my god! I feel like that's always what you hear. Like people who write like the most brutal books are like usually the sweetest people. You know what I mean? It's like
that's not me. But...
Oh, okay. You speak to dogs and only dogs.
Yes, exactly. They deserve it.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to put the link in the chat, of course, to buy Mayfly here on its debut day. We're so lucky to have CJ here. CJ, there's one final question that I ask all my folks who come on the show, and it is this. So just imagine right now that you have like the perfect reader for this book, like the most ideal person who picking up everything you're putting down, just getting all the references, everything. The best reader on their best day. They close MAEVE Fly, they look out the window. Describe for me, just in a phrase or maybe even just one word, what is that reader feeling?
I would say if that reader felt excited, ready to drink, hungry, horny, satisfied, that they went through any kind of catharsis. I mean, I guess what it really it'd be like, it's that sort of like, I'm ready for a cigarette moment. That's what I would hope.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that they're feeling hungry and horny, but also satisfied. Like just
I would
like all the things.
Yeah, I would hope. I just that most of your bloodlust can be shed in the reading of this book, hopefully.
Oh my God, cathartic. I love it. Like I said, folks, I mean, legit, I was texting our mutual agent this weekend saying, I am holding a future cult classic in my hands. The voice is amazing. It felt like I was in the hands of a master, certainly an absolutely unique voice. I am so psyched to see whatever you write next. And like are you on like a 3-book deal? Is that right?
Yes.
Awesome. And by the way, did it all happen at once? Like 3 books at the beginning, or like sort of it followed on after?
It all happened at once in the last 10 minutes before my auction was closed. It was crazy.
Oh my God. So great.
Crazy.
Well, that is amazing. And the next book is due out maybe a year from now or so?
It should be next June. We'll see.
Okay. And it is MAEVE or a totally different set of characters?
Different book. But we may be returning to MAEVE too. So
okay. Either way, we're a winner. I love it. I love it either way. Well, thank you again. Here's the beautiful book, folks. Please buy a copy. Treat yourself to it. It's a great read. And CJ, congratulations on all the things. This is amazing.
Thank you.
The book is awesome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This was so fun.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week on The Thoughtful Bro. Probably taking next week off, but the week after that, it's going to be an interesting one. There's going to be former FBI Director Jim Comey. Has become a novelist, and he is going to be on this show. So that should be interesting to say the least. But CJ, thanks again. And folks, we'll see you next time on Thoughtful Bro.